Last week on Thursday, China has canceled U.S. credit card.
I have the article in tomorrow's IF. It's a good article, and it's true. The game's over unless the U.S. cedes more power to China. So they're going to have a tete-a-tete here, and could bring about war.
You know, this Representative Mark Kirk, he was the first member of Congress to tour the Bureau of Public Debt, which trades bonds, and he was alarmed at how much debt was being bought by the U.S. Federal Reserve due to absence of foreign investors. And, another thing that he says is, I don't know if this is true or not, but he says that no one on the Hill knows that this is going on. How could they not know? Are they really?
Well, he's just making excuses for them. And that's not true. Of course they know what's going on.
How could you not?
The Fed has at its disposal, they have committed themselves to, at the moment, buy $700 billion worth of toxic paper and $300 billion worth of U.S. Treasuries over the next 2 months. And then they'll have to start it all over again. They don't have any money. They create it out of thin air. That's why we're going to have more inflation. Because the minute they buy that paper and buy the Treasury paper, it's monetized. So all of these people say we're going to have a deflationary depression now are wrong. And it's going to get worse later when the banks start spending the money that they're holding at the Fed in order to keep the whole edifice from collapsing. Look, we've been right, they've been wrong. I'm not infallible, but the chances of my being right are 99%, and of their being right are 30%.
This is a lot about when you talk about inflation, and this question has been about there's a lot of people out there saying that if we have really bad inflation, the stock market will go up numerically much higher, yet in terms of gold will be worth less. How does inflation affect the stock market? And if that is true, how will the Dow ever get to 4,000?
It varies historically. It all depends on the underpinnings of the system. If you look at Zimbabwe, their stock market went crazy. But this isn't Zimbabwe. If you look at Weimar Republic, their stock market did not go crazy. If you look at Argentina, which is the closest to us, the stock market did not go crazy. So you can flip a coin. No, I don't know, you don't know, nobody knows but God. And he's not telling anybody. We've got to sort this out for ourselves. I have a few questions here as well.
I just have this one. Oh, I got one more. I also think that, Bob, when the Dow hit 14,000, now that was inflation-driven, wasn't it?
No, it was manipulation.
Because we were seeing higher and higher inflation during that time also.
Yes, you're right about that. You're right about that, but that wasn't the reason. The reason why was manipulation. Then they went short and rode the market down. Then they went long. Yeah. They're running it up again, and they're shorting in here.
Yep, yeah. You forecast a sideways movement of the economy via GDP for the next 18 months or so. How will this affect the actual financial markets? Will it move sideways, or will it continue to decline? And can you elaborate?
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's all. Can you elaborate? Was the question.
Look, we're going to have inflation, and that, I think, is going to put a cap on the market. We have large unemployment. That's going to put a cap on the market. We're going to have falling consumption, which translates into minus GDP, and it might get to even from minus. And I went over this earlier during that period of time. And that's okay. That's a mini recovery, if you may, caused by all of the money that they poured into the system. But at the same time, inflation's going to be 15% again. Now, once the banks start spending the money that's sitting in their behalf at the Fed, that's really going to send us into hyperinflation. And how far down the line is that? Probably a year and a half to 2 years. As time goes on, more and more people are going to become disenchanted because of programs like this. I mean, sometimes I do 15 programs a day. Today was an easy day. I only had 7 one-hour programs, one of which was 20 minutes on Fox Radio News early this morning in Boston. And there were a couple of jerks. I really shouldn't go on those stations. I think it's a waste of time.
And if you have a question, Bob, go ahead. We're at about 4 more minutes.
Okay, here we go. Jim, if you need a question from Melody, I refer it to you in the formal sense because you deserve all the respect in the world for imparting your knowledge, etc. Am I right in surmising that today is a milestone in the gold market? Because today, when President Obama and other leaders spoke to the American people, the gold price did not decrease, either before, during, or after their speeches. In fact, the gold price gained during and after their speeches. Now, he's absolutely right, and, I didn't think about it until I read this, because I wasn't watching these people. I didn't know who was speaking to whom because I was too busy on the phone with these programs. But anyway, Jim, you're right, and I'm glad you brought it to our attention. That shows gold is very strong in here today. One from Chris. I have recently heard that the policy and methods of... Oh, you just did that. Okay.
Yeah, I read most of Chris's. I know sometimes you get the questions, too.
So we're all set. Give another special out.
Another special? Another one? I don't know. We're just going to stick with one. Mint State
1932 Lincoln pennies.
1932 Lincoln pennies. The special, 1 penny. If you can find it.
No melt value?
No. 800-375-4188 for your special. Purchase 5 of those coins, and you can get your subscription, your new subscription to the International Forecaster. It's a great buy. Don't fall back on your plans of purchasing gold and silver just because you see the stock market rising and you think they have everything under control. It is just the opposite. So you continue on your plans in purchasing other items, getting your water, your food. You can't allow that to, don't slack. And just because things, we're in the middle of the storm, or in the middle of the eye where everything seems to be quiet. It's far from quiet. So give us a call at 800-375-4188. And, of course, for your complimentary issue to the International Forecaster, use the same number. And 30 seconds, Bob. Any final words?
Yeah, bond markets, the 30-year bond and the 10-year note have both distinctly broken down. Interest rates are going to move higher. A minimum of 3/8 of a point, maybe as much as a point. We'll see by the end of the year. And that means all those countries that are borrowing money, and corporate as well, are going to pay a lot more for what they're borrowing. And that's why there's such a rush right now by countries and companies to sell bonds, because the game is going to be over shortly, or they're going to have to pay more money.
And we're out of time. We'll be back on Wednesday. Still on there. Have a safe evening. Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Good night, and God bless. Thank you, Bob.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.